we actually have two family-led efforts that are both at their very beginning stages here in Hamilton County. Kathleen and Cassandra are partnering on one of those. Do you bring your own cheering section?
No, they're commenting on the uniform.
I was going to say, yeah.
Sadly, you could not coordinate your outfits like we could.
If we would have got the memo, we were going to have it.
And they have your handout, so you might just reference
Okay,
those.
so this is what our handout looks like. It's not very exciting, but nonetheless it is a handout. It's really just our talking points from today. So Cassandra and I are going to kind of go back and forth to explain what we're thinking about, what we are learning, what we intend to do. You don't have to wear black and white if you choose to get involved with us in any way. We don't prescribe that. But I want to start off, I'm going to grab my glasses because my eyes aging. The rest of me is not, but my eyes are. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about what the current situation is. And some of this is going to be pretty repetitive because Home Think Tank has been looking at this a lot. But from the areas that like really ring to us when we started thinking about all of this is that, so individuals with disabilities often have very few options for housing. As parents, Cassandra and I and a couple of other women who we know, we sit there and we think, do our children live with us for the rest of their lives? Is that the option? Do we do the 4 families getting together and buying a house option? Do we sign up for LAD or Envision or any one of these? Get on the waiting list. I shouldn't say sign up for housing. Get on the waiting list for any of those. Those are pretty much the options that people are looking at, and it's, as you can imagine, fairly daunting to think that those are your only options. The other thing is that, and Home Think Tank is really focused on this, and that is the lack of affordable and accessible housing in Cincinnati. And then one of the things that we are concerned about in the group that, and it's not a fixed group, but as we talk to people, one of the things that we are concerned about is this idea of tying services to where you live. And we want people to be able to make decisions about their housing independently of who their service provider is, so that at no point in time do our children lose power effectively. And then, of course, the other issue is that individuals with disabilities, in particular developmental disabilities, can have very isolated lives. So this is the backdrop that we are looking at and causes us to stay awake at night and causes us to talk to other families about what do we do, what do you want to do, etc. So who we are a group of parents, and we come from different backgrounds in terms of our children. We obviously come from different backgrounds in terms of our own life experiences, but unique to our children, or specific to our children all have different diagnoses, if you will, have different needs and different desires, which has been really good because we are learning from each other, and it also opens up to a broader community that we can look at. What we want people in a community to think about is that our children can live in a home with whatever supports they may need and be welcome and included in that community. And that's what underlies everything that we are thinking about as we are learning and on this journey, that we want people to see that our children have that right and have that ability to live in a community, live in a home, whether that's an apartment or a house or what have you, get whatever supports they may need, just like me in my life. So that's one of the things that kind of brought us all together. The big thing for us, and when we look at everything, is we don't want to fear for our children's safety. We don't want to fear for our children's loneliness or isolation. So kind of the backdrop that we come to this project with. When we think about going forward, where our children are going to be, we'd like to be able to see them live independently of us or separate from us. And how do we do that in a way where we can go to sleep at night and feel comfortable that they're living a safe, secure, and social-filled life? Cassandra's going to talk a little bit about our mission and the principles that we've come up with.
So I think Kathleen really did a great job of just telling you why we're doing this. And it's important to remember that, we just went through this design thinking process. We don't have finite ideas. We are open to what is available in the US, what's available in other countries, and we are gathering that information. So as we approach this, and I said we're going through the design thinking process, we came up with a question or a problem. So our problem is, how might we develop a housing community which is affordable, accessible, welcoming of people with developmental disabilities, and is focused on building an inclusive community? We want everybody to feel part of a community, not just in a community, but welcomed. People all want to be there together. So to get to the answers that we need, we had to come up with design principles. This is laid out in your handout, but I'll describe it a little bit more. This is family and individually driven, not backed by an agency, not backed by an institution. This is families coming together and exchanging ideas and learning from other families. We want an intentional living area centered around building a community with a focus on neighborliness. We want a community support network for our individuals. We need somebody to connect the people in the housing development with other people in the development and other people out in their world, out in the community. We see demographics of the housing project to reflect the community in which it's located. We don't have a specific site, a specific structure in mind yet, but we do know that there should be a percentage of people with developmental disabilities in this housing development. It should not be the place where people with DD live. We don't want that. We don't see that. We want it to be a cool place for everybody to live. Like, anybody can live there, including all of our friends with developmental disabilities. And then finally, something that we wanted to kind of talk about again, and I didn't have it written down here, but we see the physical housing and the social life development as separate from the services. Kathleen talked about that. People, I think, are used to, I'm gonna live in a house that's served by Envision, served by LAD, served by another agency, and parents choose that, and that's awesome for the choices that they've made. But maybe something's going on and you want to go with another agency, and you don't want to have to move the people that live there. I want to find a place for my son to live, and if he loves it, I want him to stay there regardless of who the staff is. Maybe you have staff issues, maybe you don't. I want to control that. His sister wants to control that. Whoever's in his life wants to be able to control that. He wants to control that. So those are our design principles. We've learned a lot. We've done a lot of research, and so you don't get bored with one of us, Kathleen's going to talk about what we've learned so far.
Especially because we're both wearing black and white.
You might get us confused here.
So this is a learning journey for us. We don't profess to have all the answers right now, and every time we talk to somebody else, we get a new piece of information, and we are open to ideas and suggestions. Some of the things that we've learned, we've kind of put them into general buckets, I guess is what I would say. So the thing that's been really fascinating to us is that this is a hot topic, much hotter, if you will, than I even thought it was. There are families across this country, like if you do Google searches, you know, you don't necessarily find nonprofits, but you find some PDF that some family put together for a meeting because they're trying to get more. It's really amazing to me how many people are looking at this issue, not just in our country, but across the world. I got an email from somebody a month ago saying, my name is so-and-so, I got your name from so-and-so, I don't know either so-and-so. I don't know how they got my name, but I heard you're working on housing, here's my situation with my daughter, and I'd like to get involved. And I was really overwhelmed. I was a little bit emotional about it because of the way he shared his story. But it was just so striking to me because there was this sense of emotion, but there was this sense of desperation too. And, you know, that man's child is done with school, has aged out of the school system. So that man's daughter is now 22. My daughter's 17, Cassandra's son is 17. We feel like we've got a little bit of time to be on this journey. And I have to say, I felt for this man whom I've never met before, that the sense of urgency for him. So there are parents in this room who are nodding their heads. For the rest of you who aren't parents of children with disabilities, it is incredibly frightening for us that there are very limited options out there, and that many families are worrying about what happens when they die and their child is alone in the house. You know, I mean, it was emotional for me to get that email. So anyway, many families are looking into this, and many of the families that we have spoken to, some people have been like, oh yeah, right on board with us. And other families have been like, no, that's too much work. I need to do this because I've got a full-time job and my spouse has a full-time job. I can't be doing that. I need them to go live in a group home where there are 24/7 service providers. And you know what? Every family has different needs. And that's why we're just trying to be really open with our design principles as to this is what we're looking at based on how we are trying to live our lives and go forward from there. So we're learning, and we want to continue to learn. So let's just say we look at a place that is autism specific, and it is a farm, and it's 300 miles away from here, and everybody lives there and works there and does everything. While it may not fit our design principles, there are things we can learn from that. We might find out that there's something that they do that could be part of something we do. So we're not discounting anything and saying if it doesn't fit these design principles, we're not even looking at it. We feel like we can learn a lot, even if we learn from people's mistakes. Some of the questions we ask are, what would you do differently, right? Or how different are the original goals versus the actual outcome. So we're open to learning that way too. Families typically say, when you ask them what they want for their children when they're living on their own, they talk about safety. They talk about wanting their children to be happy and have at least one friend or someone who cares about them. Somebody who's going to look in on them when mom and dad or whoever their guardian is no longer there to do that. That's not different than my 19-year-old son. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just that there are some additional things that I have to take into consideration for Grace that I don't have to take into consideration for Ben. We've looked at different models, and when I say we've looked at them, we've read about them. We have not visited them specifically. We've looked at them. We've looked at models around housing for people with disabilities. We've also spoken locally to places like Renters Equity and the Enright Eco Village, et cetera, to just learn from them on kind of community-based living. We do feel like a cooperative approach or a co-housing approach will best facilitate the social network aspect of life. Many times people who are going into a co-op or a co-housing setup already are inclined towards building community. If you would describe them or stereotype them, they are the people who want to know their neighbors and want to share a group dinner and things of that sort. That's why they're willing to look at something like a co-op or a co-housing situation. So at this point, we think we're going to be going down that path of either cooperative housing or co-housing. have two quotes here, and I'm not gonna, you can read them for yourself, but they're kind of the principles that we're thinking about. So, a lot of us are on Facebook and social media, and we're constantly getting surveys or research about friendship and the importance of relationships on the health and welfare of human beings. And this is something we attend to, we pay attention to. It's just like me. When I have people in my life, I'm happy, I feel fulfilled, I'm sure my heart rate's great, all of that. The same is for our children. So their self-esteem, their sense of worth, their sense of being is going to be greatly impacted by having people in their lives that value them and want to be with them and respect them. The other piece of this is basically how we build our houses. If you come to my street, I have 5 neighbors. How does she not know whether she has 5 or 6 neighbors? It's that small, right? I've lived there for 4 years. I've yet to meet all of my neighbors. Everybody comes in, pulls in their garage, goes in their house, and lives in the back of their house. It's a cul-de-sac. And I've brought tomatoes, I've done all this stuff, right? But somebody much wiser than me said, Kathleen, I always think about your street, and I think, what if there had been green space in the middle, and there was like a perimeter road, and that's how you went into your house, but then everything happened in front of the houses. And that's so true. So the other piece of this is, it's not just about putting together a building and calling it a co-op. A big part of this will be how we design that space to make sure that we are facilitating relationships among the people who are in that building or in that space. Am I doing it? Oh, I'm doing the next thing too. You get me for another thing. So what do we have yet to learn? Basically, we have a ton left to learn. I'm not going to kid you on that. We have a lot left to learn. We've kind of grouped it in a bunch of different things. We feel like we understand social connection and so forth, but none of us are great at it, and we have a lot to learn in that way. So given that, what we are looking to do is build housing and social connectedness, we need to work on learning more about how to do good social connectedness. Development of property. So it's less expensive to buy a building and rehab it than it is to buy land and build a new building. But we don't even know what's out there. So we don't know at this point whether we're going to be looking at land or buildings. That's something to be determined. We need to learn a lot about designing a project design for something like this, which goes to what Ernie spoke about at the end, that learning tool. We are not, while there's somebody who we're working with who's an architect, we have someone who's an urban planner, and then we have
I retired early.
And I have none of that stuff, but I know people. So I've got the know people piece. But in any event, so that's going to be a big learning for all of us. We have to learn more about construction, and in the case of all of this property development, we need to find partnerships in this. Obviously from an affordability perspective, we can't be hiring out everything. How we operate the property. So again, I mentioned before that we're looking at co-housing or cooperative housing, and that might be the way the property functions. It might be something where people, I guess technically we could do a condominium type setup. So we have to look at all of those things, and then the financial aspect of it. How are we going to get funding for this in general? And then how do we set up funding for the people who are buying into this? So that financial model. So those are the things left to learn, and those are just big buckets, but we have a lot of details within those buckets that we have to learn.
So that brings us right into moving ahead. So moving ahead, you have to figure out, is this 20 units? Is it 100 units? What does that look like? We'll investigate everything that we can and see what was successful with a lot of units, what was the downfall of a lot of units. Are they all attached? What kind of community space did they have? That's integral to this. Like, if you can't bring your community together, it's going to fall apart. And we learned that right here in Cincinnati at the Enright Eco Village. They are longing for a place to pull everybody together. So we can learn from everybody from the structural building to the social life network, and then everybody is on, kind of on their own to figure out the needs of the individual person that lives there. My son will always need 24-hour care. A lot of times when I talk about this, people say, oh, my fella or my gal, she needs too much support. Like, this would never work. There's something else that would work. But my fella cannot be on his own, ever. He's building skills every day, but he'll always need help. And I think this would be the greatest opportunity ever for a boy that's not going to talk, a man that's not going to talk, to have a community living with him, being able to text me and say, Troy looked crabby today. Or the fella, I saw with Troy wasn't, doing something that I, think you should know about, or was doing something. I feel like if people know him and love him and get to know him, they'll embrace him as much as we do and the other people in his life do. If he lives in a house somewhere, like my house, I'm pulling people in constantly all the time, trying to have people get to know him, spend time with me in my neighborhood. But if he lives in a community where people have chosen to be there, I think he's gonna have a better life. So that's the goal. The way we're gonna figure out what's out there and the way we're gonna create what we want for everybody in Cincinnati is to just investigate it. We may have to bring people here so then everybody can hear what they have to say. We may have to go visit some places, and then we'll video, take notes, and put a blog together, put a website together, because it's not just us. Everybody is searching for something. Parents, siblings are searching for something unique. We have another one right here, searching for something unique. We're trying to figure out, what does she need in her life? What do we need in our life for our children? And how, how can we bring that to Cincinnati? So, you can look at our moving forward list and what we're gonna do and our timeline, and we have a lot of work to do. It's not an easy project. We talked about 18 months to 10 years. This may take 10 years, and we're cool with that. My guy's 17, he'll be 27 then. That's all right. So, to sum up, we know that we and other families can build and create this. We know we can do it. We know that we can think through our question. How might we build this? How might we create this? We know that we face challenges, and the one thing that we're coming to terms with is investigating and failing will only make the outcome better in the end. So we're gonna investigate it, we're gonna think about it, we're gonna do as much up front so we don't have failure in the end. But we know that this is possible. We also know that this group right here is godsend to us, because we don't know a lot. We know we can do it, but it takes all of us to work together to create this awesome community for our children and for the rest of the people in Cincinnati. My hope would be that you create one, no matter how big this facility is or this community is, and then other people want to keep on doing it. And we just have this all across our region, all across the U.S.
We should probably clarify that too, because we've met some people and heard about a few projects that are being looked at around here. We're not looking to make money from this. We're not looking to franchise it. We want to create something, and hopefully somebody, let's say we create it on the east side of town, someone from the west side calls up and says, tell me what I need to know. And that's great with us. We're not going to be able, the way we look at it, 100 people might come to us and say, we want in. But because we want to manage the demographics fairly closely, and we don't want this to be the disabled building, we're not going to be able to provide housing for everybody who has a need right now. But our hope is that if we do a great job at this, then another group of families can come to us and say, what did you do? How did you do it? And we have like this little packet, and we say, have at it, go do it for Northside, or go do it for Blue Ash, or go do it for what have you. But we're not looking to franchise, we're not looking to make money off of this. And the other thing that I want to say is LAD was founded by a mom. And some of her friends helping her. And Cassandra and I, you know, every now and then would be like, okay, we can do this, we can do this. And then I always think, you know what, LAD created something amazing for its time, right? It was considered out there for its time. And I firmly believe that moms are gonna do this again, and it's gonna be out there and creative and phenomenal for its time, which is now. Thank you for letting us talk.